Hello and welcome to the Stripping the Dipping podcast. You're joined by your usual co-host, AMG Dent, aka the MDM, the modern day Morgan Freeman. You love the smooth voice of the guy, the normal guy, I should say, from North London, as Georgina hates to admit. But either way, I'm normal. But on the other side of the spectrum, we have some really special guests in the building because we've not got one, we got two. We got two for the price of one on this very legendary episode. I've got two amazing guests that have both their individual YouTube channels, which makes some amazing content, have access into stuff that, we still at the Stripping the Dipping podcast would love to have one day, but we're getting there. We're getting there. But as always, it's nice to be brightened amongst the stars. So without further ado, I've got Liam Talks Motorsport in here, and I also have Miles on the grid. Guys, how's it going?
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you both so much.
I echo Miles' thoughts. I don't know why I was waving. I was thinking like I'm on camera or something, but it's just for Spotify. It's just for Spotify.
Soon, Liam, we'll probably have like a visual one or interactive one on YouTube too, man. So we're just testing the asphalt, but for sure, I'm sure we'll get a visual one coming up in a couple of in months as well. Towards the end of the season too, because there's just so much even beyond this episode that I think we'll have stuff to talk about and have in common with.
Nice, exciting. And I must say, man, you've got a great show as well. I've been following you for a little bit, so keep it up. And yeah,
thanks.
I'm trying to follow in your footsteps, if I can use that old adage.
I mean, to be fair, I do not know how you guys are able to like commit to doing like a podcast. Like I did 3 episodes, and now I'm just like I don't have time for it anymore. The perks of being a student at school, I guess. But
exams, I don't quite hear that quote.
exams and everything. They're a pain in the backside, but all worth it, right?
Oh, absolutely, Liam. Because like education is always key. And of course, as well, once you go through school, man, I'm telling you, it doesn't get any easier, bro. Like, the world of work can be a cool place. And, when you're on the Stripping the Dipping podcast, you've got to record maybe like 10 episodes just to get one Ben & Jerry's ice cream out of Georgina. So it's a lot of hard work. But,
I mean, are you picking chocolate fudge brownie or caramel choo-choo or cookie dough? What's your pick?
Man, I would say I'm a caramel chew kind of cookie dough guy, man. But how about you guys?
I'm a half baked between like chocolate fudge brownie and cookie dough. They have like these half baked stuff, so you can like buy them from my local farm foods. That's the cheapest place to go and get them. Cheapest place to get them, as and Tesco are a nightmare. But yeah, they're very nice. I love both not caramel choo cookie dough and chocolate fudge brownie.
Of course, like the flavor of the people. And Miles, you as well. What's your flavor?
I'm not a mad ice cream person, just because like it's way too complicated. I know. Get me off now. But when I do, it's either cookie dough, Ben & Jerry's, or like when B&S is on sale, like in Aldi or Lidl, and you get it for £1. Yeah, that's me. I'm there.
Like Mr. Kipling and stuff like that.
Oh goodness! Don't even get me started. I'm gonna start.
You're not making me hungry.
Yeah,
you're making me hungry, and this is supposed to be like a motorsport podcast as well. Look what you guys have made us do. Wow. Okay. Oh man. Well, I mean, that was a really legendary intro, I must say so. But like to actually give our viewers as well some context about the amazing individuals that both you guys are. I'm actually gonna start with you, Miles. Could you give us just like some insight into like where you're from? About your YouTube channel and what were your earliest motorsport and F1 memories growing up and favorite driver as well?
Ooh. Okay, cool. Hi everyone, I'm Miles. Just sort of been on the YouTube voice for a second. My channel is really just about speaking to interesting people around the paddock, really. So like journalists, people on Twitter, Instagram, really trying to get like a different viewpoint. So looking at some historical stuff, not as cool as what Liam does with Jim Clark, looking at some historical takes, looking at different elements of a race as opposed to always doing a race review, just because I don't have time anymore, but always trying to find out what's the hottest take that we can look at from a slightly different angle. I think in terms of earliest motorsport memory, it's probably That's a good question. I think it was probably Schumacher in 2002, if I'm honest. Red car. My dad sat me down in front of a cable TV, the cable and wireless back in the day. That was probably my earliest memory. And where my dad worked at the time, there was the car in the lobby of his building. So whenever I'd go and see him at work, it was just there, and it sort of piqued my interest. So that's pretty much it.
Ah, it's a really awesome time as well, Miles, and similar kind of experience for me too. Like I remember my dad sitting me in front of the TV, and just seeing the red car on TV, and it was the legendary Michael Schumacher. And man, just that era of V10 engines, just like the Tifosi, and man, it was a great time to be alive, man.
Nothing beats a Ferrari off that era with a V10. Like even now, you go to central London and stuff, and you hear a V10 or a V12, you're just like, you know what? Well, for me, I want petrol, but I can understand the electric thing. But anyway, enough about me. I'll pass back over to you.
Of course. And also we have Liam. So Liam, I know you gave us an amazing intro too, but similar questions for you as well, man. Where are you based? And tell us more about your individual channel as well, because you've had some really interesting videos and kind of access to things that we don't normally see, which is great. And what your earliest like F1 memories or motorsport memories, along with your favorite driver, which I can imagine probably has the initials JC, and that's not for Jeremy Clarkson either.
No, Jeremy Clarkson is a legend though. But you guys are making me feel like I'm a baby. Like you guys are talking about like V10 era. For context, the closest I ever came to V10 was when I was in my mum's womb, and the Toro Rosso was restricted on power in 2006 with a V10 engine. So
I see what you did there.
So I wasn't even born. The year I was born was when there was the first year there was no V10s on the grid, and it was just V8s. But I'm based in between the sort of cities of Dundee and Perth in Scotland. And I'll start off by just doing the childhood memory. And my favorite driver of all time, even though I was minus 39 when he died, Jim Clark. But in terms of like during my lifetime, it would be, and I'm not just saying this because I met him, but Sebastian Vettel, because I've got a sort of similar story to you guys where I actually used to support Ferrari during the sort of era of Alonso and later obviously Vettel. And then my journalist aspirations kicked in, and I sort of just lost interest for Ferrari naturally. But I guess like many tifosi have over the years due to the ups and downs of the team. But my earliest memory would probably be the last race where Kvyat was in the Red Bull and he punted Vettel into the barriers at turn 3 at Sochi, at turn 3. And my YouTube channel is, well, I'm not on it as much because, like I said, I've got tests and exams and things like that. But I usually make videos, classic videos, talking about guys like Jim Clark or Ayrton Senna, and talking about past things. And I'm not really doing as much stuff on my YouTube channel as such. I'm more writing articles for Formula Nerds or for someone else. Sometimes even just writing scripts for YouTube videos that never get uploaded, to be honest. So yeah, that's just sort of a quick bio of what my stuff is.
That's really awesome, Liam. And again, I don't want to make it sound like an age gap thing either, man. Because, again, you're kind of so mature beyond your years as well, and you've kind of seen some of the stuff me and Miles have seen as well. But Miles, you probably have a similar thing to me as well. I wish I was as productive as Liam was when I was his age as well, because to have the ability to write, scripts or stories, and to actually be so engaged with the sport at that particular age as well, it just means that there's this a whole landscape of things you can go on to do in terms of journalism or presenting or hosting. And for sure, I think I want to sign a petition to have Liam as one of the hosts on Sky Sports F1, because claiming it from now,
I
He'd be
mean,
amazing.
that's the thing. I actually know like the senior assistant producer at Sky, Neil Wooding, because he follows me on Twitter. So that maybe it's possible.
Hey.
Maybe it's possible. Who knows? Who knows? But that's for the future. At the moment, I'm focused on school and everything. So things are a bit more focused on that end. But I think the reason why I'm so sort of mature, as you call it, is probably because I've been raised right, and I think I'm a bit different to a lot of the other people at my school, where I'm a lot more, like you said, a bit more mature. But I'm actually like, I'm not a very productive person, actually. During these holidays, because it's holidays in Scotland at the moment, I've been doing absolutely nothing. So I've been sitting in my room playing video games all day rather than writing scripts for videos. I've wrote an article, and I've done my sort of thing that I've needed to do in the past few weeks, but I'm not a very productive person. But yeah.
Liam's still more productive than me, man. Like
well-
I like play games, but I try and disguise it as me being in the simulator. So that's my excuse. That's my excuse, basically, for just playing like video games at my age. But no, like like I think we all relate to that as well, and it's amazing just to get that perspective too. So to kick things off, guys, I mean, I'm gonna give you guys like lots of hypotheticals, and also we'll explain it to the listeners as well. Towards the end of this podcast, we're gonna rank all 20 of the drivers from like worst to best in terms of their season performance. And what me, Liam, and Miles try and do is like collaboratively agree on that running order. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. But to kick off like the interactive questions, I want to like set the scene for both of you guys. Imagine you can enter your own Formula One team. And there's no cost cap, just like Red Bull. Cough, cough. Shots.
Spicy take.
on the edge there, on the edge
Exactly.
there, on the edge
Exactly.
there. Be careful, mate. You might be getting a
Definitely.
letter from Red Bull soon. Be careful.
Yeah, man. We like to live dangerously on this podcast, but you're right, Liam. Before I get a lawsuit for defamation, let's just say allegedly, like a certain energy drinks team, you don't have a cost cap, so money is no object, and you can sign any two drivers of your choice. And bear in mind, like obviously, reality is reality, and there's unfortunately some drivers that aren't with us today. But just imagine in an immortal world where legendary drivers cannot be forgotten or die, which in a way kind of is the case. You get to pick two of your star drivers for your own Formula One works team. Who would you pick and why? I'm actually going to start with Liam first on this one. So Liam, who are the two drivers you'd pick, if you were entering your own Formula One team into the sport?
Well, I just want to very quickly say, first of all, that yesterday I made a tweet about there was a video of Jim Clark on a Twitter account, and I reposted it saying that the only person that comes close to him is Senna, and I got a lot of pelters for it, but I would pick Jim Clark and Ayrton Senna as my two drivers. I picked Jim Clark because there are so many incredible stories that Lotus mechanics and bystanders and close friends of Jim have told about him. There's one example of him where a Lotus mechanic, you could always tell out of the two Lotus drivers, which one of the cars was Jim's without even looking at the number on the car, because Jim was always so precise with the car that he would never even damage the car as such. In many cases, you could probably enter the same car multiple races, in multiple different races, because probably the whole season, because Jim Clark was such a careful driver. The only reason why he had so many car problems over the years was because the Lotus was a very unreliable car. And another story a Lotus mechanic told was how Jim said that something fell off with the car and a wheel bearing was slightly loose on the car. And that just shows how good he was treating the car. But not only this, you could be slow and be good with treating the car. I mean, Latifi isn't, but yeah, Jim was incredible. I'm literally watching like an onboard of him now from I'm literally watching the video that I reposted about, and it's just incredible the way he's controlling the car. Back then there was no driver aids. You had had one hand on the wheel and then the other one on the gear clutch, and he was just such an incredible driver. Most notably around Spa-Francorchamps, but if there was a calendar just full of Spa-Francorchamps, Jim would become the first ever driver to win every single race that season. But he was a brilliant driver. And then on Senna's case, Senna was, in the words of Jeremy Clarkson, Senna was just incredible every time he stepped in the car. He was incredible not only in qualifying but in the race. He was he was always on the limit. Ayrton Senna. And like I said earlier, you can be on the limit, but you can be again like a Latifi. But Senna was different. He was built different. He was constantly pushing the limits of the car. As Martin Brundle said, you'd have these banzai qualifying laps, and everyone came to the race purely to watch him perform his magic on a qualifying lap. And he was so good around specific tracks and in specific conditions that he was just unstoppable, especially in the rain, and especially at Monaco. But over a whole season, he was so consistent, and he was such a talented driver. So those would be the two drivers I would pick. And with Senna, he had a couple of driver aids. However, he had the same thing with Senna, where he would have to have one hand on the steering wheel and the other on the gear clutch, and he's constantly moving the gear stick flat out through every corner. And you look at videos of Senna, and he's constantly on the limit. His car's constantly moving about, even when it's in a straight line. That shows how on the limit he was, and that's how talented he was.
I couldn't have articulated it better, Liam. I think you like assessed both drivers in such an honest and also really amazing and reflective way that even people who, well, if they don't know who they are, firstly of all, where's the internet? But secondly of all, just again, you just encapsulated that period of time so well. And in particular in Jim Clark's case, like you mentioned back then, it was really, I think Formula One was still in a very agricultural place in terms of it was a lot of manual work, and you didn't have computers, you didn't have simulators, you didn't have all these technological advancements that we have now. Like it was all about man and machine, and Jim Clark was that guy, that was able to do it consistently and not only have just the flair on the track, but that kind of tuition with his engineers to be able to interact with them, to get the most out of them as well, and to kind of have that synergy with them, which is so important. And then with Senna, needless to say, again, just like a driver just of an entire era. And to this day, we still haven't seen somebody with his kind of flair and panache and way of finessing a car around the corner, and like you said as well, like almost making the car dance around Monaco, which is a bit scary because most people describe Monaco as like riding a bicycle around a living room. I try not to.
Let's say about who said that the better. But as Jarno Watney would put it, you just click on the button as soon as possible. Just get straight to the race. I've seen that clip online. No, click on the button.
Exactly. And shout out to Jan Obmer too. Again, one of the he's an amazing content creator. Obviously, esports world champion in the F1 kind of esports stuff as well, which is crazy. And yeah, he makes some amazing content too. So shout out to Yano. But also Miles, come on, man. You have a Formula One team as well coming in. And now, actually, I'm going to make it even more harder for you. You can't pick Senna and you can't pick Jim because they've already been signed. So
damn. Okay, Jim was one of the top two. I can't lie. So okay, I've got an idea. Let's start with Sir Lewis Hamilton. Right, I'm not going to shy away from that one because I think I know that he had sort of unlimited testing days with McLaren back in 05 and 06, and it was a completely different era, but for him to come in and due to, dare I say, the king that beat the king. So for him to sort of become level on points with Fernando Alonso in his first year and win sort of by, and count back if you count that. And that man had already dethroned Michael Schumacher with a mixture of, let's say, tyre changes over to Bridgestones, etc. To me, that was impressive. Like, I don't think I'd seen anyone come into the sport and just dominate. Right? And yes, you had Spygate and all this stuff, but to see the resume and the CV that Lewis has put together over the last, 16 years, is it? 17 years? It's relentless.
16 seasons. Yeah, this is 16th season in F1.
16 seasons.
So.
It's crazy, right? You can't. Well, I say you can't. I personally think he's one of the greatest ever. Is he the GOAT? Jim or Lewis sort of hold that title for me. I know Senna's there as well, but he's just relentless over a pole lap. He's relentless in the race. His race pace, I think, is actually unmatched apart from Jim, having watched some of Jim's highlights on YouTube. And dare I say, I do think he is a master in the wet, albeit he's not the same driver that he used to be in the wet. But that's just me being controversial. Second driver I would sign, just from a pure point of aggression, would be Juan Pablo Montoya.
Now, ooh, I like that. Yeah, I like that. That's fresh.
Can I butt in here? Or
yeah, sure.
I would pick, and I'm not being like Scottish bias or whatever. Yeah. You know, I met him and interviewed him, not public, by the way. Jackie Stewart is who I would pick, and the reason why is because he picked up a lot of the traits that Jim Clark had.
Yes.
If you look at how the Tyrrell team progressed, they would have been a midfield team. They would have been where Ensign or Shadow were had Jackie Stewart never raced for them, because what he did with them, he turned a pile of crap into one of the best cars arguably ever. There's a reason why he won 3 world championships against a Lotus team which was in its prime, because he managed, along with Ken Tyrrell and Derek Gardner, to design cars which were unstoppable. He was incredible at giving feedback, and that was why he was such a good driver. You know, that's just my opinion.
No, I'm with you, but I do think it's, and I'm sort of taking into account what you said around sort of taking the team from nothing. You look at Schumacher going from, dare I say, Benetton to Ferrari, albeit he had a lot of aides and a lot of strong managers around him. You look at Schumacher going to Mercedes, and dare I say even Lewis going to Mercedes, and you look at Stewart going to Tyrrell. I think why I chose Juan Pablo Montoya for me is because he displayed a level of fearlessness, which, and I mean, I haven't watched enough of Senna to like comment completely on that, I'll be honest, but he displayed a level of fearlessness which I don't think has been seen up until about maybe when Max came into the sport. So 2016 onwards. His racing on the limit and that ability to find that extra 10th is something that I think would have put him in world championship worthy status if he was able to remain committed to F1, but also if he was able to gel with a team in the way in which we know he could have. And I think from that perspective, that's where I think that if Lewis Hamilton, Sir Lewis, is able to come into the team, and Juan Pablo Montoya is there, to find, let's say, an extra 2 turns or an extra 3 turns, which they didn't even know that they had. From a feedback perspective, I think that Lewis would probably have to take the lead on that. I'm not too sure of JPM's technical knowledge, because I don't know that much. From a pure racing perspective, it would be an absolute dream. I mean, you look at Juan Pablo on Spa, it doesn't matter what year. It could be in 2004, it could be in 2005. The man just loved racing. You know, he would put on a stellar pole lap. The overtake that he did on Schumacher in 2004 was ridiculous. Like this was unheard of at the time, technically, in a slower car to a degree. So from my perspective, that's the drivers that I would choose.
You know, I'm glad you... Well, Jim gets a shout out as well, but Miles, I think your taste there as well, man, is exemplary, because again, like, you know, when people talk about great F1 drivers of the past, I think JPM does get looked over. And just like you said as well, man, the guy had he had balls of like not even steel. They must have been magnesium or carbon fiber or Xylon or something like that, man, because the guy was just tough. Really, really tough. He was Colombia's finest. I don't mean the stuff that you get illegally on boats either, but you know, this is just generally speaking. Yeah, man. Like he really did not fear anybody, including Michael Schumacher. I think in a way it gave him a kick that, you know, he could potentially challenge Michael and kind of rattle Michael, you know, into some battles on track that Michael probably wasn't even expecting to really accept or take at the time. And then you mentioned this, how close JPM came, you know. people will give Adrian Newey a lot of credit for the stuff that he's done at Red Bull, and obviously prior to his time at McLaren, the stuff that he achieved with Williams too. But that time at McLaren is just the nearly moment, because he's experimenting with all this kind of zero side, well, not zero side pod, but the Coke bottle shaped chassis,
a Coke bottle,
you know. Exactly, and all these kind of radical experimentations, which would then become like standard in Formula One during kind of like Juan Pablo's time. So, like you said, it would be interesting to see kind of in a modern day kind of format, with him being in his form, how he'd stack up against Lewis. Because I think although Lewis is the more well-rounded driver, I think if you're just talking about raw speed and aggression and making it stick, he's one of the most exciting drivers to watch, and that's been the case, I think, for like a numerous amount of years, and it's still funny to see him jumping in the IndyCar, making a couple of appearances for McLaren even today in the IndyCar series, and doing some of the world endurance stuff too. So absolutely, great choices, guys. And that brings me on to another kind of question then, because we like to be controversial on this podcast. So I've got a couple of them on this kind of basis. From your guys' perspective, who's the most overrated driver in F1 history? Miles, you're going to kick this one off.
Sugars.
Yeah.
Okay. Liam, I was hoping you were going to one.
Jesus, great. Now you've put me on the spot. You put me on the spot. Now I'm tempted just to like throw my headphones out the window as well as my microphone.
Total Wolf style.
No, I know. Could you imagine? This is a podcast, Liam, we look podcasting. But, sorry. I'm going to be really controversial, and I'm going to upset some people.
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking complete history, or are we talking recent history?
Man, any history, man. I don't want peace, I want problems today.
Okay. Recent history, Fernando Alonso. I'll come out and say it.
Ooh, that's a fiery one.
And I respect Alonso as a complete driver, but as an F1 driver, I do think he's slightly overrated. Opinion. Reason being is because as much as I admire what he's doing, and I admire the fact that he's able to conjure up some ridiculous results, or nearly results, like the Australian qualifying session before his, I think it was his break-by-wire system failed, the Canadian front row start, and the gap that he manages to pull on Esteban Ocon in the race, and the ability to like hold up half the grid and get everyone annoyed on Twitter afterwards.
That was his ultimate Jarno Trulli's job back in the day for Fernando. Now Fernando's doing that. Trulli's legacy lives on.
But I don't think he's doing anything. He's doing something special for his age, 100%. But do I think he's doing anything special? Not at the moment. Like, you beat Schumacher in an era when there was that tyre change going over to Bridgestones, and Schumacher and Ferrari didn't account for that. They were completely at sea in 2005. 2006 was a little bit different, but once again, Schumacher was right on it up until Brazil, if I remember correctly, where he had that issue. So for myself, you're a double world champion and you're great. Go on as if you're the best driver that the world's ever seen, and I can't respect that. So that's, to me, why he's the most overrated in recent history, for sure. Previous history, controversial once again, because I was going to do a feature on him before this whole stuff came to light. Nelson Piquet.
I'm gonna be honest, right? I actually agree. I agree, genuinely. Right? Hear me out. Nigel Mansell's a much better driver than Nelson Piquet ever was.
100%.
Mansell had so much bad luck compared to Piquet. I will literally get up, right? 1987 F1 season. Mansell had so much bad luck compared to Piquet. Like, it's ridiculous. You had the tyre failing in Australia. You had the Japanese crash for... I've got it up right now. In the whole season of 1987... Nelson Piquet had 2 retirements, 3 if you count Japan. Mansell had 4 and missed 2 races of the whole season. Piquet missed 1 in San Marino, but Mansell missed more races than Piquet did and had 1 extra retirement. he finished 12 points behind in the championship. And then you had, of course, 1986, where he had the tire failure, where he would have become a world champion. I mean, he was such an unlucky driver.
This is the thing. I think as much as Nelson Piquet is a 3-time world champion, context is everything, like you mentioned, Liam. And I think a lot of the time we just tend to look at the stats, and it's often, well, I say we, I'm talking wider F1 world, but we're looking at stats and you're thinking, okay, what was this season like for that driver and for their team, but also for the red? Like, did the rest of the grid stand a chance? You know, it's as if me saying that 2014 was one of Lewis's best seasons. It wasn't, because the engine dominance was there, and that's me saying it as a massive Lewis fan. I can't justify that. But was 2018 one of his best? Absolutely, because he smoked everyone, including his teammate. So I'm with you, 100%.
Yep. And just to interject as well, guys, I think really great shouts there too. And you guys kept it respectful too. I'm not gonna lie, I thought you guys were gonna go really in, but you know, we kept it peaceful for now. But no, I agree with both of what you guys said, you know, in relation to Fernando Alonso. I think as a driver, yeah, you know, he's achieved some amazing things. You know, we talk about kind of him ending Michael Schumacher's dominant era. Then obviously things didn't work out for him so well when he moved over to Ferrari. So, you know, he went actually back. He got back with his ex-girlfriend. He went back to McLaren and then had another, you know, kind of like unceremonious stint with them with the Honda power supplies. And then, you know, the guy kind of steps out of F1 for a bit. He jumps into, you know, World Endurance and does like Le Mans, wins, you know, the Le Mans kind of like title as well, although howbeit with Toyota in the car that's the most dominant car. So when people like to use this argument that X driver's only good because they win an X amount of car, I guess you could apply that logic also to Alonso winning in Le Mans and the only competitive car that was ever going to win the race. But, you know, he's gone and done some Dakar rallying and it's all cool. Like, I think if you're talking about like a driver that wants to be the complete package and try and show that they're the most well-rounded, fair play. But in terms of like doing it in F1 today, there are times where I think you see elements of like brilliance, and I think the other times you're just like, this guy's annoying. He's just like a smell that continues to linger. So I think you're completely spot on. And then, you know, Liam as well was spot on too with the whole Nelson Piquet thing and how obviously the number of titles he has kind of says something for the history books. But in terms of him being like a cherished world champion, I don't think he would be even in the top 10 most likable world champions in the sport when you look at
he'd be dead last. Like even James Hunt, who was literally like a playboy and a bit of a misogynist, would be ahead of him. So there you go.
True. I mean, it says everything there. That's so true. That's so true. So guys, we'll roll on to the next one then, which is on a similar theme. So we've done who's the most overrated driver in Formula One, but now
Gilles Villeneuve. Gilles Villeneuve. Most underrated driver, Gilles Villeneuve. Nah, Richie Ginther.
Well, I actually wasn't even going to go down that lane either, Liam. I was going to go down the even more like controversial route. Who's the worst driver of all time in F1 history? Evil Den's coming out here. You can see I'm in my villain era today. But
this is ridiculously easy. Al Peace, 1969 Canadian Grand Prix. He was disqualified for being too slow. So that's all you need to know. Ricardo Rosset was bad. UGE Day was bad. But this guy, in the words of that meme from, I don't know, what was it, SpongeBob? This guy stinks.
Oh, gosh. Like, big shout out there, Liam, as well to RPs. Because, again, wasn't he Canadian, by the way?
Yes, he was.
What is it with Canadian drivers and being at the back of the grid?
He was actually born in County Durham, apparently, in England.
Hey, we're not claiming him. To us, he's Canadian. Like, let's just get that in there. You know, he could stick with Stroll and definitely Latifi with that kind of track record as well. But yeah, some honorable shouts there for sure, Liam. Miles, who would you say is your like the worst F1 driver? Like,
and you can't say Al.
I can't take Alpine. Maybe Adrian Campos, if I deep it.
Yeah. I think that's a fair one. That's a fair one. Yeah.
How do you get disqualified for getting your AirPlugs?
Was
Like,
that a thing?
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes,
Brazil,
that actually happened.
like when he was at Minardi, and it's just like you've got your big break, you've got your opportunity to shine on world stage, regardless of whether it's for a small team, big team, huge constructor. Do something with it. Like, don't waste your chance. This is your only chance. And I think for him, he was really unlucky, if I remember correctly, as well. Yeah,
If he was as good at talent spotting as he was at driving, then he probably would have won a race. But
yes,
you know,
yeah, and that's the thing. He seems like an incredible talent manager, but
yeah,
as a
he
driver,
did.
it just
Yeah,
wasn't for him. It seems.
yeah.
So yeah, that's my pick.
It's interesting, you know. We talk about drivers that then become driver managers, that then become driver owners, you know, in
Yeah.
terms of obviously McLaren. I think it's probably the biggest and the most obvious one. But you got Chip Ganassi on the American side of things. You got Trevor Carlin,
Penske as well.
Yes.
exactly, Roger Penske. There's just so many names in the world of motorsport, and you know, some of them actually start off as drivers and then thing. But yeah, go on, Liam.
And not many people know this, but Colin Chapman was actually a racing driver. So was Bernie Ecclestone. Yeah. They both actually tried to compete in Formula One races. Bernie didn't qualify for the 1958 Monaco Grand Prix, and Colin Chapman did qualify for the French Grand Prix in 1956, but he caused an accident with Mike Hawthorne, so he didn't start the race because the car was all thingied up, and that was how he met Jim Clark, because they were both competing in a race at Brands Hatch in Lotuses. So.
Hey, you see how everything happens for a reason? Because as much as I actually wouldn't mind seeing Colin Chapman behind the wheel, he's a really tall guy as well. Like, just him as like an engineer and stuff he did with like, you know, the floors and side skirts and kind of like the Venturi effect, even in the early days, you know, of his works it was incredible, you know, and it really formed what Formula One is today.
And also the underrated aspect of him was also that he was an incredible he was incredible at marketing. You know, the reason why the whole Cosworth thing started was because he managed to get Ford to back the Cosworth team. And without that, Lotus would probably have half as many world championships because the DFV engine would never have been created. By the way, I saw the original drawing design for that, but that's just a bit of a brag.
I'm surprised you didn't steal it, Liam, man. We want some of that intellectual property, you know, for the upcoming seasons. Because if Ferrari or Mercedes could develop a more powerful power unit to catch up with Red Bull, I'd happily take that. So yeah, man. Next time you go to that museum or where you saw the drawings, just make sure you do us a favor and just pick it up on the sly. But no,
yeah,
I mean,
all they'd have to do is just develop it into a turbo hybrid V6 engine, because the DFE was a V8 that was naturally aspirated. But you know,
I mean, the FIA would never.
Adrian knew he would always find a way. Adrian knew he always finds a way.
Well, I was gonna say, like, the FIA are so concerned with people's pants and jewelry these days. I don't think they'd be even too bothered. So I say we do it, guys, man. We need to sign that petition. Either bring back the V10s or bring back the V8s. It's about time.
As Sebastian Vettel would say, bring back the effing V12s.
Yeah.
Oh, I just remember that. That was kind of like radio message too.
Sochi 2019. He was on course to do well in that race as well. Yeah. Maybe you'd have 54 Grand Prix victories rather than 53. But that's how racing goes, I guess.
It's a nice number, man. Like, it just reminds me of Herbie straight away. Guys, Herbie's amazing. That film was all the different iterations of it as well. And to see a Volkswagen Beetle smoke everybody on the circuit, I just love that. That's incredible.
You know, I'm surprised they didn't give the number 63, because that was like the year that the car came out. But yeah, 53 is a good number nonetheless. My favorite number is 63, but you know, that's just.
So now you definitely have to be a George Russell supporter as well.
No, it's Jim Clark reasons. Jim Clark reasons.
I love that. Okay, guys, next one, and this is one that's a bit more common on the podcast, so you guys might be familiar with it. Taxi, dinner, avoid. Now, again, because we've actually brought in some historic drivers, some legendary drivers, some iconic drivers, I'm not going to be as mean as I usually am to most of the guests. I'm going to let you pick anybody from any generation, bearing in mind you can't pick the people that you've already used. So, sorry, Jim Clark, you won't be coming with us for dinner, on this occasion. But I will say, who would you guys pick if you had to go into town? So you had to get a particular driver of your choice to pick you up. you had to then go and have dinner with a driver of your choice, and then there's one driver, you're trying to avoid them, you're just trying to avoid them like how Lewis tries to avoid Max at the apex of most corners. To put it that way.
Mercedes fans will be launching a defamation suit against you. That will be led by F1 Jordan and Brad Philpotts, but
shout out to them too, amazing guys. But oh man, just the amount of heat they bring to the Twitter log as well. They get
the award for biggest Mercedes propagandists. they are what Joseph Goebbels was to the Nazi Party. That's all I'm saying.
Whoa, I can't go behind that one, but I'm with you in there.
Right, so Miles, actually start off with you then. Who are you going to pick for your taxi, dinner, and avoid on this occasion?
Do they have to be an F1 driver? Question.
Yes, okay, but cool. If you had any interesting other shouts, throw them in the ring, man, because I'm being generous now.
Okay. Taxi, Michael Schumacher, because I feel like there's a lot to glean from him, and he'll be quite quick with his words. He'll just literally give you everything you want to know and be like, leave me alone. Either him or Kimmy.
By the way, don't waste time on 94 Adelaide. That wasn't even his fault. Like, Damon came from like a mile back. I'm sorry, but right. I'm being honest, right? It's like I'm going to be unpopular, right? That wasn't even Michael's fault. 97, absolutely, but
Jack Villeneuve.
But yeah, no. Taxi, Michael. Dinner. Wait, so what is it? Taxi, dinner, avoid. Right? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Dinner would be. Ooh. No, Kimmy would be too. I couldn't get a word out of Kimmy. I would try.
Man, you just be eating ice cream. You just going whop.
Literally.
And then he'll go to the toilet and come back and said, I was having a shit.
You missed the speech by Pele.
Literally. You know what? I'm going to be slightly controversial. And I would say dinner would be someone like Nick Heidfeld, for example. Or...
That'd be a good one, yeah.
Because I feel like it'd be a good conversationalist. Or dare I say Nico Rosberg, and I'm not saying this as a Rosberg fan. I'm really not. The reason I say Nico Rosberg...
minimum 5 times you'll mention about how he beat Lewis in the same car. I am Nico Rosberg, 2016 world champion, and I beat 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton in the same car in the 2016 FIA Formula 1 season.
But between him and George, I'm not sure who says greatest of all time more, but...
Blimey.
Yeah, crikey.
He's trying to drive like he's saving his life. Yes, he is, George. He doesn't have a seat for next season.
But I think Nico would be interesting because I'd want to understand what exactly it took for him to beat Lewis, but also how he encounters resilience. Because let's face it, like he beat Michael when Michael wasn't at his peak of his powers. Lewis eased off the gas from COTA, I think it was 2015. And then Nico sort of got the jump on him and went on a bit of a tear. Plus, mechanics changed garrages, but apparently that didn't happen. So I'm not taking that into account. But my point is, I'd be keen to find out how he got the mental fortitude to keep on coming back with the same energy and vim, as opposed to doing a Bottas, who I like somewhat, and just sort of laying down a bit. So that would be good. Avoid. Ooh, I'm trying to get into the paddock. We've seen a lot of stuff over the last couple of days. I'm trying to get in, so I've got to be careful with this one. I can't use. Oh, damn it! I can't use Nostan Piqué. Okay.
I was gonna say I would have said him because that's the thing you don't need to avoid. You don't need to avoid him. You don't need to avoid him in the paddock because he's been banned. So.
I don't.
I mean, you'll have to avoid Kelly and Max, but that's not.
You know what? I wouldn't even avoid Max. I'd want to understand how his psyche works from a perspective of putting number 1 on your car and stuff. But that's a whole different topic.
I mean, Lewis did that a couple of times. He didn't put it for the whole season, but he did it a couple of times in Abu Dhabi. So
yeah,
you
could ask him boots, man. God, really like
gold boots.
You got boots. Like last year was an asterisk, and you put gold. Okay, like.
Man, the only golden boot I recognize is Benzema. That's it.
Golden boot. Yeah. Who does he think he is? Like Miroslav Klose or Jos Fontaine or someone like that, like winning the golden boot. Seriously,
Wait,
right? Just
people
Fontaine's the
from
most
Twitter.
Just Fontaine is literally like the Richie Ginther of football. He's so underrated, man. Like literally, go Google Richie Ginther. He was a really, really good driver. There's a reason why Ferrari hired him. That's all I'm saying.
You know what I'd
All I'm
avoid?
saying.
Sundays to Rotkin.
Mark, I'll make your life easier. Just pick Mazepin, man, as the person who you should avoid. Just Mazepin.
I don't count that dude at all. Like he can jog on. No, because of how he is towards women, he can jog on. I don't even avoid him. He don't exist.
He lives rent free in all of our heads, but
I know he's actually making money off us. But no, you're right, Georgina. Yeah, probably Nikita Mazepin.
Fair. Liam, taxi, dinner, avoid. Who you picking?
Right.
Like, actually, you can't pick any of the guys which you mentioned before.
Right, straight away dinner, Mario Andretti. I was saying to myself
Ooh.
this a couple nights ago, right? If I had to interview 3 people, Jackie Stewart would be first, Mario Andretti would be second, and 3 living people anyway, and third I would go with Alan Prost. But I think Alan Prost for the taxi, for the dinner, Mario Andretti, and I would try and avoid. Gosh, this is tricky. Try and avoid. I am gonna go with. I can't think of anyone. Bernie Ecclestone. That's it, Bernie Ecclestone, and he counts because he was a driver. He was a driver. He didn't qualify for a race, but he was a driver. So
fair choices, and Uncle Bernie. Yeah, interesting character, man. Uncle Bernie. Just
we slap on some sunglasses and you'll be having weekend at Bernie's.
Exactly, with the rose tinted like glasses as well, and just the kind of like bowl cut too. Just but
can I tell like a quick story?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so Alan Jones was meeting with Enzo Ferrari, and when he met Enzo was like a really, really like pale, and he said he thought to himself, because he had sunglasses on, are we playing weekend at Bernie's here? And he had a meeting with him, and in the end, he ended up picking Gilles Villeneuve as a driver. That he wouldn't have regretted that. But Alan became a world champion, and Gilles didn't. But Alan Jones is actually quite a funny guy. He'd be one of the guys you'd probably want to take out to dinner because he's quite a funny guy. So.
Absolutely, and his time at Williams as well, I think, was really cool, and what he was able to do with Frank too, when they got those championships in those years as well with the ground effect cars, and again, this really awesome guy. So I agree with you 100% on that one as well, Liam. Good choices, So that brings us on to the next one then, hot lap circuit and driver. So as denoted by the very simple kind of introduction there, you guys have to pick a hot lap circuit and a driver, a F1 driver, that will take you for a hot lap of that circuit.
Ayrton Senna, Monaco. Ayrton Senna, Monaco. Done. That's mine done. I got there before you could. I got there.
Damn it!
I was trying.
I couldn't even put the exclusion on there, but fair enough. I'll let you have that. You in there like Lightning McQueen. All right, I'll give you that one, Liam. How about you, Miles?
Speed. I am speed.
Ka-chow.
Juan Pablo Montoya, Spa, 05.
Ooh, another thing as well, Miles,
1988 as well. 1988 for me, because then 1.5 seconds ahead of Prost. That's all I'm saying.
Talk about it. But also, Miles as well, you mentioned Montoya at Spa, that video. I think there's a video. Guys, I implore the fans as well to go and watch it. At Spa, the V10 McLaren going up Eau Rouge. You hear the thing before you can even see the car going through Eau Rouge.
Yeah,
it's just just as the engine just reverberates off all the trees on either side of the circuit. And as well as that, it's just they do these kind of cut shots of Montoya's lap and then Kimi in the garage. And Kimi's just not smiling. It's don't smile. I'm finished. I'm not allowed to show emotion. Don't smile. And then at the end, Montoya does this blistering lap. And then Kimi just cracks a smile okay. You got me this time, Pablo. You got me this time. That was a good lap. But no, just oh man, that'd be thrilling. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it would be, for me, it's either that or, I know I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record, but dare I say, finished for that, which he didn't. Max Verstappen, Saudi Arabia last year.
Man, I'll be fair to say, I echo the same points on that too. If he had just not been greedy, like in the great words of Big Smoke from GTA San Andreas, All you had to do, Max, was turn the final corner. That's all you had to do. But
all we had to do was make the damn corner, Max. Get on the throttle at the right time.
Man, he had too many number 5s, number 9, extra 6 with extra dip, and that's why Red Bull are over the cost cap. Anyway, before I get sued for defamation again, before I get sued by Christian Horner and those guys there, yeah, just oh man, like Miles, talk us through that again, man, because for Hamilton, I was like, raw, like Hamilton's going as quickly as he can, and it might just be enough. But then when I see Max like literally dashing the car through every single corner, sparks flying everywhere from the underfloor, I was like, yikes, this is scary. Talk us through that, Miles, from your perspective when you watch that live.
I can't lie, and I'm going to sound a bit like, oh, of course you thought that. I thought he was going to bin it. I actually thought he was going to bin it. He was way too aggressive in Sector 1. Way too aggressive.
It was like me when I was watching the Euros final a couple of years ago, and I was looking at, and no, it wasn't Euros final, sorry, it was Mbappe against Switzerland, and the way his stance was, I was just like, he's gonna miss it, the keeper's gonna save it, and Jan Sommer saved it. It's a bit like that, like you can tell when someone's going over the limit or when they're going under the limit in the football case, and like you can sort of preempt when something's gonna happen in a way with certain drivers.
Yeah, it just didn't feel. Don't get me wrong, I was rooting for this that day. I was like, you know what, Lewis, smoke him, bring it to Abu Dhabi, and then we all saw the absolute heinous amount of crimes that were committed on track the very next day. But Max, as much as he wanted that, I felt like he could have even backed off a little bit, maybe taken second. He could have still possibly taken first. You know, set in purple sector after purple sector, and it got to that last sector where it's all about the driver, apparently. To use an infamous quote, and he didn't manage to. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I think he lost the rear, and then, if I'm correct in thinking, as if he scraped the ground enough, and then the floor started to wobble from the front as well, so as if the front and rear suspension weren't in tandem with each other, and then absolute clang into the wall. Of course, it's the greatest lap of all time, and blah blah blah. But if he had finished that lap, to me, that would have been a lap which I would have wanted to be in a passenger car or a sidecar on, because to be that close to separating yourself from reality, it almost reminds me of that Lewis Singapore 18 lap. It reminds me of that Senna lap around Monaco. It reminds me of those street circuits when you just don't know.
Singapore 2013 as well.
Yeah, exactly. This is the thing. It's those tight, twisty tracks on a street circuit where it's, dare I say, do or die, you know, and it's nothing to separate you from yourself and the car. It's literally, I don't want to use that phrase, but it's to the wall, if you get where I'm coming from. So I don't like the dude, but he can drive. He can vote.
Yeah, no, we have to give him credit for that. As much as, you know, like, that's the thing. We don't say that we're like a non-biased podcast. We have our favorites, but at the same time as well, there's nothing wrong with giving a guy his credit, you know, when he does the job. And, you know, I think at least this year, like, you know, although there is a lot of stuff off the circuit, which we'll find out about in a couple of weeks' time, I imagine, as the FIA cook up a concoction as to what they do.
They'll probably somehow screw that up as well, but
yeah, as they do, Liam, as they do. But in terms of Max, no, I think he's matured. I think that's as much as, you know, that's the very minimum we can give him. He's grown up, he's matured. You know, he's still got that kind of innate, nasty kind of streak to him, where if he has to do something out of the rule book, he can fully do it. But at the same time,
but Senna was like that as well. To be fair, where like Senna was. Senna was a polarizing figure because he was a really, really kind person. You know, he saved Eric Koolmaas's life, and yet he risked Alan Prost's life in Suzuka, you know. And I'm not talking about 89, I'm talking about 1990. But, you know, I think Max has got that similar sort of trait in him. I think he's matured a lot, and I think he's a lot more He's matured a lot, like I said, and you know he's a lot more of a respectable figure nowadays than he was a couple of years ago. For example, when he nearly assaulted Esteban Ocon after the Brazil incident, and I think he's matured a lot since then. I don't know whether that's because his dad's given him a kick up the butt. Not the only time that his dad's done that, by the way. Unfortunately,
shots.
I'm gonna get defamation from him now. But, he's gonna find my IP address. He's gonna hunt me down, and he's gonna assault me probably. If I'm being honest, but you know what? I don't even care. I'm here to speak the truth, and the truth is Max Verstappen's matured a lot. Maybe it's because Christian Horner or Helmut Marko have plugged something into him, or maybe his dad has, or maybe it's a sort of peer thing. Maybe Daniel Ricciardo somehow has gotten something into him, some sense. I mean, who knows? Who knows where Max has gained that maturity from, and where like that cool head.
I agree. I think it's new Max. And I think I said this when I was chatting to Cameron a couple of weeks back. Whether that Max stays when Lewis is back at his peak, in terms of being at one with the car, we're yet to see. And I think that's a talking point for us to think about in the future.
Oh, absolutely, Mars. And to kind of add to that too, I think like we definitely see him in terms of his racecraft and his decision making. It's got to a level where he makes more rational decisions. However, a leopard never changes their spots. And what I do like, or not like, but what I find funny with Max is he's still got that kind of this guy could go from being the coolest guy ever to completely like flipping his lid and dropping about 20 F-bombs in Singapore when Red Bull underfueled the car because them guys don't have enough money for Shell petrol.
Yeah, they blew it all on catering. They blew it all on catering, lads.
Exactly, man. All those number 9s and number 6s we talked about, they weren't gonna come at a cheap rate.
Nah, but like Schumacher at 98 Spa levels. I maintain that was deliberate from Coulthard. By the way, I maintain that was deliberate. Schumi deserved the title in 98. That's just my opinion, though.
That gave us a really awesome moment. Like, we can actually talk about that as well, Liam. Like, jeez, did you see Michael's face when he's like, "You want to kill me?" And then he goes up to David Coulthard and tries to shake him like a money.
You effing idiot. It was a bit like Montoya when the guy hit him with the camera. He was like, you fucking idiot. You hurt my fucking headers. Like I remember like DC actually like immortalized that moment and he said, oh, if because someone hit him on the head with the camera and he was like, if I was Montoya, I'd be going, you fucking idiot. Like it was just us Scots, man, we're something else.
Honestly, you guys really are. But you guys are giving us so much entertainment and this moments where you're like, wow, like that was actually a thing that happened, or like, these things that we look back on and we just have to laugh on. So
we gave the English some entertainment at Bannockburn as well. So Scotland Independence 2023. Come on,
let's go.
I don't like the SNP, but still, like, come on, up the independence. I want to get away from the mess that is the British government. Like, Chancellor being sacked after like a month. It's just ridiculous. But that's politics. That's not racing related. But
well, sometimes let me say that, but sometimes it feels like racing is politics with the sort of stuff we see on and off the circuit. But like it's true. It's true. There's just so many parallels you could draw between the two. And actually, on that kind of segue, that brings us on to the next question, guys, which is the last of the interactive questions before I kind of delve into some of the content both of you guys have made, and then we do our top 20, which I think Georgina will probably split into a separate video. But, all right, I'm going to actually start with Liam on this one. Actually, yeah, I'm going to start with Liam on this one. Liam, you have to make a Netflix series about a rivalry in F1 that hasn't already been covered. Which rivalry would you cover?
I would go with. I'm just trying to think of one because it's quite tricky. PK v Mansell comes to mind because of what PK said about Mansell's wife, but then you've got on the other side of the spectrum, and this isn't just like two drivers; it's actually three. The whole 64 season between Graham Hill for BRM, John Surtees for Ferrari, and Jim Clark for Lotus. Like that was such a huge rivalry, and yet they all got on brilliantly off the track. Of course, like Jim and Graham were really good friends. But if I had to differ between which one of them, the 64 one wouldn't be as popular, so I would go with Mansell versus PK.
Ooh, that would be a fiery one. Miles, refer it to you. Which Netflix like rivalry would you cover? And also, I know that with you might have to dip fairly soon. So another question.
Sadly.
I know, right? But we will get you back on for future episodes as well, man. Both of you guys have been phenomenal. Both of you guys need to come back in the future. But would you as well, Miles, actually, whilst we do the rivalry thing, I also wanted to discuss, at will as well. You made a really interesting video on your channel, and I'd recommend our listeners go and check it out as well, along with all the other content you make. You made a video like called 3 Reasons Why Daniel Ricciardo Deserves to Stay. So it's a kind of double-barreled question, but we'll go with the first and then the second. Rivalry that hasn't been covered that you'd want to see on Netflix and direct, and 3 reasons why Daniel Ricciardo should stay in F1 for the people that haven't seen that video yet. Go.
Calm. So, rivalry. Sergio Perez versus Esteban Ocon.
That's a good one, actually. That's a really good one. I should have thought of that.
At Force India / Racing Point, there was this.
They probably bankrupted the team. They probably bankrupted the team with how many crashes they had. And then Checo saved them, and Lawrence Stroll left them in the mud. Do not show Aston Martin or anyone at Aston Martin this video, because I will probably be some sort of thingy by them. But I'm just being honest.
No, I mean you're not wrong. Like I think with Checo, Checo was always one of those underrated racers, right? He would end up on the podium at Monaco, he'd end up on the podium elsewhere, and he would sort of drag these midfield when it was a proper cars up into like these really unexpected points finishes. And everyone banged on about the fact he was like a sort of pay driver. But then you had Esteban Ocon come in, who I think is quite underrated, but that's a different video. And he would effectively bring a competitive streak and a fiery nature, which was similar to, dare I say, Max almost. And I think that's why at Brazil they had that off track. That's why I was on it. When they started getting really codified in Canada, and this is at Racing Point or Force India back then with the pink car, when they started getting close at Canada, and then I think Perez nearly pushed Ocon into the wall at Spa on the way up to
Rouge.
You're thinking, what is going on? Like, are these two trying to kill each other or something? It got that testy on track for me throughout that season, or that season, they're 2 seasons together. So yeah, I'd love to see a Netflix series on that. Going to your point, then, about Daniel Ricciardo. One, he's rapid. I do not care what anyone says about the McLaren and Lando Norris can drive it, adaptability. Fair enough, I hear that. But the dude has won 8 races. I don't know, 9.
And these times, sorry to cut you as well there, Miles, Lando Norris, nil. Okay, continue, sorry.
I will get into the paddock, man, so I've got to be careful with the phrasing. But all I'm saying is, Lando's stuck it on pole, but he hasn't won. And
However, the counterpoint I would make is that the Red Bull cars that Daniel drove were much more competitive than the McLaren cars that Lando's ever driven. The fastest car that Lando's ever driven is probably one that he driven at Daytona with Alonso. So that's my counter argument to that. But that's just my opinion. Also, Lando's had like half as many races or less than Ricciardo, but that's just my opinion.
And I mean, don't get me wrong. I agree from the perspective of what cars Lando's driven. But I think one thing which came up in a race article, I think it was like yesterday or the day before, where Daniel was saying these are the only cars that Lando's known. I think that does bear some sort of weight, because he hasn't moved, let's say, to a different engineering structure. He hasn't had to deal with a completely different environment and trying to build up a completely different car. Yes, he's had different teammates like Carlos Sainz, and he's, dare I say, worked his way through a technical regulation change quite successfully. Right, he got the podium at Imola, and he's been doing well. But Daniel is still pretty rapid. He's still got really good race pace on occasion. We saw it at places. We've seen it at Baku when there's been team orders. We've seen it at Kota last year. We saw it at Monza. So for me, it's not like it's left him, but it's a suitability issue mixed with a lack of confidence. I think lack of confidence is something that we don't give drivers enough credit for. And I think that's one reason as to why, or a second reason as to why Daniel deserves to be in F1. And 3, yes, I spoke about personality in my video, put that aside because every driver needs personality now to be a success, I think. But he's got this level of engagement both with others within the sport, but also with a wider audience, taking Netflix out of it. And I'm talking about presenters, journalists, editors, where he gives an insight into the racing mind that not many do. Right? Whether rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying he's technical in any by any stretch of the imagination, but in terms of understanding how a driver approaches their weekend, you can understand whether he's going to have a good qualifying session, whether he actually thinks the race is going to be pretty crap or poor, whether he thinks, he's got an actual shot of winning a race, despite that potentially being misguided belief. And I think having that level of insight and access to, which, don't get me wrong, Lewis doesn't do anymore because he's hyper-focused. Max can't do. I think we've seen K-Mag do it a few times, as well as Mick, but Mick's not a great reference point at this point. So I think having that barometer is always helpful, and that's why I think you should stay in F1.
I think like the two people who could probably do what the only other person who can really do what Danny Rick does in the way of like being really, really good with like the media and stuff is Sebastian Vettel probably.
Yes.
Because he's probably like him and Daniel both have like these amazing personalities, and Daniel is just such an entertaining guy. But then you have to differ that from his on-track performances recently, which haven't been great. But that's just again my opinion. People have different opinions of it, and Miles has a different opinion to me. But that's just what we all have different opinions on that sort of stuff.
No, don't get me wrong, Liam. I'm not saying he's been great on track. He hasn't. He's been poor. Like I'll be the first person to hold out because I think that's wrong of me to accompany that. Like the last 2 years haven't been great. You can't just close one deal and then rely on that for like 18, 19 months. But I do think his body of work before that should give him some sort of leeway, given the fact that he went to Renault and Cyril Abiteboul at the time was saying that if it wasn't for his technical feedback on the rear suspension, they would have never had the sorted car for 2020. That's where I sort of have that still, let's say that's where I still hold that same level of hope. Like if Daniel can get a car that suits him, and I think Christian Horner actually spoke about this, and Jos Verstappen, ironically, and I don't quote that dude often, if at all. He was saying it in an article that Planet F1 reported on, and I thought, you know what? That's the only time I'm going to agree with you. Not because I want Daniel to succeed, but because I think it's an inherent part of the issue with him at the moment. But that's just me.
Sorry, go on.
I think the exact same thing could be said about Sebastian Vettel as well.
Yeah,
if he has a car with a stable back end, then he's probably going to become a 5-time F1 champion if he has the right machinery behind him, the right people. But then again, you could probably say the same thing, like, if Latifi had the McLaren MP44, he'd probably become world champion.
My guy crashed that as well.
Oh god! Could you imagine a repair bill on one of those?
Oh dear, Ron Dennis would not have been happy.
He'd have made him
pay putting it mildly
himself. Nah, but yeah, I hear what you're saying about Latifi. I think there's a certain class of drivers who can jump into any car and do well. We've seen it, and I know I sounded him a little bit earlier, but Fernando Alonso, Max to a degree. I want to see him in another car in his career, and then really sort of make a judgment at the end. I think
Jim Clark is the greatest when it comes to that. Like he won Formula 2, British touring cars, nearly won Formula 1, and the Tasman Series all in 1 year. And I think he won a crazy amount of the races he competed in, which is mental. Sterling Moss was the same. Sterling Moss was another one who raced on a lot of different things and won. So I think you see it more common with drivers of the past and current drivers, because obviously back in the 1950s and the 60s, drivers competed at Le Mans, Indianapolis, and competed in Formula 1 at the same time.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, the only person to have done that in the last almost 40 years to compete at Le Mans and in Formula 1 in the same year, barring an IndyCar, and the Indy 500, it's Fernando Alonso. A few people have done Le Mans. Nico Hulkenberg did it.
Yeah.
So did Fernando. I meant to say it, Indianapolis 500, because I think there was like a really crazy statistic. The last guy who did Indianapolis and F1 in the same year, before Fernando Alonso, was Theo Fabi in 1984, which, if you can't do math, 34-year difference, which is absolutely mental. Yeah, here it is. The event featured Fernando Alonso, the first active Formula One World Championship driver to contest the race since Theo Fabi in 1984. So there you go. Absolutely mental.
Absolutely.
But Miles, before you shoot off, man, because again, I think you gave some really valid explanations and reasons in that, and also that's just the cherry on top of the cake, man. Like, the content you make on your channel is sensational. So I implore all of our listeners to go and check, obviously the Miles on the Grid channel on YouTube.
You're too kind. You're way too kind.
Bro, like, anytime at all, man. And we need to get you and Liam back on a future episodes. But yeah, I know you've got a dip right now, man. So are there any other final words you wanted to say? Could you also plug your social medias too for our listeners to go and check you out as well? Georgina will obviously put out the links as well when the episode comes out. But please, Miles, man, I'll give you the floor as well before you have to go.
Yeah, final thoughts. Jorgy'S and Dens are amazing hosts. So if you haven't watched Stripping the Dipping before, and you're sort of wasting time by not having done so.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Liam is dare I say, a titan of knowledge. So if you don't know about F1, if you want to learn about F1, if you're new to the sport, and I say that for a reason, follow Liam on his YouTube channel. Look up Formula Nerds as well.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you, Miles. Go subscribe to Miles' YouTube channel as well. Brilliant content on there.
I like what I do, but when it comes to races, I was like, very happy. I looked him up straight away. I was like, of course. For you, it comes naturally. I had to remember and I had to remind myself. So I appreciate that. And in terms of my socials, so I'm on Twitter under F1 Miles. I on the Grid, so on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all that good stuff. But yeah, no, it's been an absolute pleasure to join you all here and continue to support the show. I'll continue to watch you guys.
Oh, thank you so much, Miles. And yeah, just we will definitely have more episodes because there's a lot more to unpack. And I think with the decision, undoubtedly coming out soon, there has to be kind of a follow-up. So it would be amazing Liam or individually, just however we can, to kind of cover that story as and when it does break, man. But Miles, thank you as well for your time, and we continue to support you and all the amazing work you do as well, man.
Cheers. Thank you, everyone. I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.
All right, thank you so much, Miles. Right, so guys, if you're still listening, or you should be listening to the Stripping the Dipping podcast, hottest podcast in the world, must I say, it's me and the legendary Liam Talks Motorsport. To finish this out, I think what Jorgy'S will do is probably split these into 2 episodes, so you'll get all the amazing stuff with the trio of me, Miles, and Liam, all cooked into one pot. But then me and Liam are also going to do a side kind of episode here. That's going to be a separate thing.